Hello, hello, and welcome back to Shelf Talks, the podcast where we dive deep into the journeys of female founders bringing their product based businesses to retail shelves. I'm your host, Roberta, and today I'm sitting down with someone who has completely redefined what wellness looks like on retail shelves. Shizu Okusa is the founder and CEO of Apothekary, a plant based pharmacy blending ancient Eastern medicine with modern day wellness. From gaining viral momentum to a strong retail presence and loyal community, Apothekary is a perfect example of a founder led brand that's innovative, intentional, and unapologetically authentic. And I can't wait to hear her journey. Welcome, Shizu.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been just listening and hearing all the war stories and love stories on this podcast, so I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear your story. So let's dive in.
Amazing.
So, can you tell us a little bit about what was life like before even thinking about starting Apothekary?
Wow. I was born and raised in Vancouver, in Canada. I am a second generation Japanese immigrant. My parents immigrated from Japan after World War II, so they were actually part of like some of the internment camps and a lot of trauma that came out of that life. And I was born and raised and kind of grew up on a farm. My dad was a cow farmer. My mom was a photographer, and we had a home-based garden, Japanese garden business.
Oh, nice.
And so I was kind of always around trees and like for Christmas, we had like a bonsai tree, for example. And like all our presents was under this like bonsai tree.
Oh, really?
But that's just like an example of like these weird East meets West traditions that I like have grown up with. And really a culturally confused child to some degree. But that has led to, I think, really embracing that and kind of bringing Apothekary to life, I think, in the most unique, hopefully, way that we brought it. But I was born and raised Vancouver. Kind of my parents wanted me to get a stable job, doctor, lawyer, finance, something of that nature. So I chose finance because my older sister was also working in finance. She was at Goldman Sachs in Tokyo, but I wanted to be in New York. I thought that was like the financial mecca of the world. So I cold emailed my boss and was like, I have a stock idea for you and I'm going to be in New York next week. Can I buy you coffee? I mean, this guy was like a partner at Goldman. But he responded within like 5 minutes and he's like, pitch me, come by 89 Broad Street at the time. That was before the new office. And it turned into a super day interview. And I got a job the next day to come back to Goldman Sachs in my final year of college. So I actually started my career working in Wall Street before starting my companies in wellness.
Wow, that was pretty bold of you, but definitely led to you getting a job pretty quickly. Were you planning on going to New York?
No, I wasn't. So that's the other funny thing was like I was going to New York. So I ended up booking my ticket and like I had no other reason to be there but just to grab coffee with this guy. And it just turned into like another interview to meet somebody else on his team. At Goldman, they have this culture where you meet everybody on the desk before you get a job offer. That's how I think Goldman has retained that cultural excellence. And we try to mirror that at Apothekary. It's quite hard when you're growing so fast to like meet everybody at the company before you give one job offer. But they do it. They did it. And yeah, I went back and I was on their distressed investing desk for about 2.5 years. So doing bank loans, equity, high yield debt, CDS options, literally everything you can think of up and down the financial capital structure.
So a drastic change versus what you're doing today.
Yeah, but I'm so much happier to be in the world and room with people like yourself. Yeah.
So what had you make that change after 2 years and being on Wall Street?
Yeah, I think I don't know if this resonates, but maybe some people listening to this might resonate with this is, when you're just doing something every day for the same time every day and something's missing or something's not feeling right. And you know that there maybe could be something more or like life is too short. You start asking these like philosophical questions that like just kind of eat at you over time. And I felt like after a year of all those questions eating away at me, I was like, I gotta go. I'm out.
Yeah.
And what happened was the boss that I cold emailed ended up taking another job. He left Goldman. And when you're at a big bracket sort of financial firm or accounting firm or consulting firm, you really need a mentor to like latch onto. Otherwise, you'll just get lost in the sea of corporate. So because Ted was leaving, I was like, you know what? I'm going to leave too and just find my new path. So I quit. And I just moved to Mozambique.
What?
Yeah. So I lived on a banana farm in Mozambique for 9 months. This is 12. So we had like a Nokia phone with the Snake game and like no Wi-Fi. This was like dial-up at the time. And I still had a Tumblr blog. I was volunteering on a banana farm, helping entrepreneurs raise money for like a banana project to then a maize project with this corn and connecting small farmers to capital, whether it's $5,000, $10,000 to buy equipment and stuff. So I loved it, but it was like the first foray into entrepreneurship and kind of realizing like I want to start something one day. I was so inspired by people in Africa with not much creating a lot. And I felt like if they could do it here, I should do it back home. And so I left, moved back to DC and started my first company when I was working in private equity. So I was kind of juggling 2 jobs again. And then I quit after 3 months. I'm great at quitting and
Wow.
starting.
And that's okay to find out what really your passion is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really important to quit early. Yeah, like early, it gets harder to quit later on when you're like in it for years and you feel like there's like higher and higher sunk costs.
Yeah.
But that's like all just how you believe and shape the reality that you believe.
Yeah, no, that's so true because after years, then it's like you get more scared to leave. You kind of get invested in a company, even if you don't really
Yeah.
love it and it's not passion for you. It just,
Yeah.
it's not as easy to do. So,
Totally. And
yeah.
that's like your LinkedIn title. And then you want to get the promotion. And then people seek you out because of that title or that role.
Yeah.
And then you're like, if I leave, then I'm not necessary. I'm not even like wanted in the world. And like, there's so many false beliefs that we feed ourselves.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
so true. So you're like, I'm out as soon as I don't, as soon as I'm
I
not
just
in
didn't
love.
want to be needed for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, so how did Apothekary come to your reality?
Yeah. So after I started my first company, it was a cold pressed juice business. I did that, scaled it for 8 years. We had 14 stores in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And then we had a partnership with Whole Foods.
Oh, what was it called?
Drink, JRINK. Yeah, J for juice. And so we did home delivery of juices. We also made smoothies, acai bowls, and made cold pressed juices in stores. So that was a DC, Maryland, Virginia based brick and mortar
That's
company. It
cool.
was
I'm from
very hard to
Maryland.
scale.
I'm from
Oh, there we
Maryland, so
go.
that's
There we
cool.
go. Yeah. Yeah. I loved my time in DC. And I just think, our facility for Apothecary is still in Virginia because after I sold the company, I didn't want to give up the team for fulfillment and I wanted to keep the lease of the space that we had. So Apothecary, though, frankly, is just an easier manufacturing business because we don't need the cold storage. We don't need all of the manufacturing equipment that we had when we were making raw juices. And so so we got acquired in 2019 and I took 9 months to pause and kind of reassess like, okay, for Apothecary, because it was brewing in my mind. We were putting powders like ashwagandha and rhodiola and herbs into like the juice shot bottles.
Okay.
And so that's how we first launched was taking drinks extra juice shot inventory, the bottles, and just putting powders into it. And then we sold that right through COVID. And I would argue, and I'm never shy about this, we did 5 million in our first year, in our first year of company. But I actually think like that was like just hype revenue because the product is no longer at all the same as the products today.
Yeah.
And I think entrepreneurs think that the product you launch with is gonna be the same product you scale with. Absolutely not.
It's just to identify like, is this a space that I want to dig into, and then kind of iterating
Exactly.
and finding the right products to fit that mix.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And having conversations with retail buyers like yourself that like, frankly, we would pitch and they were like, we can't even stick a spoon in the bottle opening because it's a juice shot bottle. And then the powders didn't dissolve because they weren't manufactured to dissolve right away. There were whole herbs. And so we realized like people don't actually want whole herbs in ground up form. They want whole herbs, but not in that form factor. That's how we kind of went back into like repivoting the business, doing a rebrand, and then coming out with these new, what we call liquid herbal drops.
Got it. So let's back it up. So initially you launched on D2C with the drinks.
Yeah.
And had you always had a strategy in which you wanted to go to retail from the onset of it?
No,
No.
no, we didn't. I mean, this is 2020. So I think in 2020, this was the days that D2C and these darlings of digitally native, vertically integrated brands from, Andy Dunn's of angel investor of ours, but he coined that term from Bonobos. And I think we were all living it, that D2C and paid acquisition and subscription revenue could continue to fund like $100 million business. No, we are we are very focused now on just building out what we call like the second leg of the stool, the third leg of the stool of the business, which essentially we've built one leg, which is D2C. Second leg is retail, and third leg is what I would consider like our owned retail channels, or maybe like our own brick and mortar strategy in like 2028 and beyond. But I think a healthy business is having a diversified revenue streams. But
Yeah.
now it is absolutely a focus.
Yeah. Retail is a focus for you.
Yes, yes, yeah.
So with that, as you kind of thought about opportunities to go into retail stores, what was your strategy? What was the kind of dream retailer that you were going after, and how did you get that?
Yeah, it kind of happened organically because our first like large retailer was Sprouts, and that they reached out to our hi at apothecary.com email, and I was like, "Oh my god." I was like, "This must be a joke." I was like, shouldn't we be pitching them? Anyway, they reached out, and this was April of 2024 last year, and we were in the middle of a fundraise, and then we were like, oh my God, like if we do this, we're going to need a little bit more capital. So then we were able to raise a little more capital. We closed Shiseido as a larger investor. And then another family office came in to join the round. So we oversubscribed that round as a result of Sprouts. And then Ulta approved us as well at the same time that we were closing with Shiseido. And so that's why if you Google us, sometimes you see some of that press where it's like Ulta meets Shiseido and the beauty is going into wellness, yada, yada, yada. But we really felt like there was a huge opportunity to create Eastern natural remedies backed by science, but also provide Western-based solutions in Western-based language and education and marketing and branding. And so that's what we do, but that's how we wanted to bring it to retailers like Sprouts and then Ulta.com to start, because we weren't sure if beauty was really where wellness was going to scale.
Yeah, so that's amazing, number one. Number two, so with Sprouts reaching out, was that because of your social presence, the community that you had built?
I think so. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people have found us through our Instagram. At the time, we were just finishing our Disney partnerships. And so I think the Disney partnerships put on us on the map in a way that we never really expected,
Oh, wow.
because we were able to partner alongside. So we did a Star Wars collaboration with Wind Down. So we did like a special Acolyte box with like a Star Wars label. You'll see it on like our social. But the bigger partnership was the Marvel one that we did with Minecraft.
How did you get that?
They reached out. They wanted to do this like kind of witchy modern take on like a potion, because it was like witchcraft with Marvel. The movie was called, or the series was Agatha All Along. So Catherine Hahn, and it was these three witches, and it was like in a modern Marvel way. And she was brewing this potion that was purple. So we came out with Minecraft, which is now what we call our cognitive and brain focused, drop. But we did this box called the Well Bound box with featuring Minecraft, with featuring Agatha All Along. So we launched that. We did a pop up in Soho with the Marvel team.
Oh,
It
fun.
just got us millions of impressions. And I think that's kind of what put us on the map for Sprouts. And then later with Ulta, at least with Ulta, allowed us just like legitimacy, being able to, execute on partnerships in a bigger way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a smart way though, because it, number one, to your point, it like helps in just the press and like the awareness of the brand and bringing in
Yeah.
their consumer group into your consumer group and like building it in a strong way.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we learned was like, at least for Ulta, they're a little bit more of an earned marketing influencer, PR kind of driven retailer, versus Sprouts is a lot more on the ground, like field sales and education and sending samples and doing end caps and promos and merchandising. Ulta's a little different. Ulta's more like, we're taking their Ulta Beauty Collective influencers to Japan, as an example. Like, I'm going to Japan next Tuesday. We have an editor and influencer trip in Kyoto. We're doing a nervous system reset for about 7 days.
Oh, wow.
We have 4 of the Ulta influencers coming: Vogue, Fast Company, Pop Sugar, and these editors that are joining us in Japan. But they'll be covering about Apothecary's heritage and storytelling that, and call to action being go find us at Ulta or Whole Foods or wherever, versus, I think Sprouts has a much different strategy in terms of on the ground. Yeah, so it's just been really unique and different.
Yeah. Different customer base, different ways in which you
Yeah.
connect with them. So
Yeah.
with Sprouts reaching out to you, did you feel like you were ready to go to retail?
Not at the time. No, no, not at the time. Like, we barely had UPCs that like were working at the time, because we didn't have to scan anything on
Right.
D2C.
Right.
You just ship it out. And so We had to like redo the whole GSIN stuff, the UPCs, the compliance, making sure that like our cartons, so like we had cartons for everything because we only had our primary pack. We didn't have a secondary packaging. And actually, I think actually I've learned this now in supplements, and maybe you probably know this much better than I do. There's not a lot of brands that have secondary packaging
Mm-mm.
in
Yeah.
supplements. But we wanted that secondary packaging because we felt like there was so much opportunity to educate people. And again, it provides a little bit of value to the customer that you have a box in addition to the primary
Right.
packaging.
Yeah. So how long did it take for you to make all those changes before going to shelf?
Well, I would say it started slow because we didn't launch all of our products initially. I think that's one thing that we also learned is like you don't need to launch every single product with every single retailer. You
Right.
want to go with like where the big gaps are or the hero products so you can double down on your brand marketing and education so it hits the mark on like those products. And so we really did like Blue Burn, Wind Down, Take the Edge Off, Minecraft as like our biggest focus there. And then we started to dribble in like the secondary cartons, the compliance, the language, the copy over time for the rest of the products. And I know I had shared we're launching in Whole Foods in about a week. And we just overhauled our secondary packaging again because Amazon is really strict in terms of what we can and cannot say. So
Ah.
we redid our website, the compliance on like what we can say. We actually can't say Mother Nature's Pharmacy.
Oh, wow.
We
Okay.
can't say nature's medicine. We're not allowed to use the word medicine. And so, that was how we initially launched because I believe that's how we should describe it. But again, from the Western FDA, like there's also like the legalities of things that we
Mm.
have to consider.
So how do you adjust the brand and the messaging and the direction that, your core beliefs of what the brand should be versus the changes that you have to make to kind of be able to scale in a bigger way?
It's a great question. I think in the last 6 months in particular, we've actually stepped back with, again, like the carton rebrand to say, we are Japanese traditions meet modern wellness. How do we lean back into like that as like the positioning again? And mainly because I think in the last year, we've also noticed that the supplement category has just become so crowded. I don't know what happened in the last year, 2 years, whether it's like the protein or creatine craze, but the white labeling of supplements has become so profound to us. And we feel much more protected about like our space because the MOQs are so high to produce like the liquid kind of drops. But we kind of took a step back and said, where does our authority voice and our authenticity match?
Mhm.
And in order to do that exercise, we said authority is herbs, i.e., plants and tradition, ancient medicine that's been around for thousands and thousands of years and passed through science and generation of use. So that's the authority. The authenticity is just how we started, which is started on the farm of Vancouver where my parents were and were Japanese immigrants. We were fortunate enough that people are so curious about Japan as a culture and our people are so curious about worlds outside of the US that is frankly right now very politically, very divided. The most like financially like really brutal time for a lot of people right now with either jobs or no jobs. And so I think we wanted to double down on like the whole wellness doesn't need to be thousands of dollars for biohacking. Wellness should be accessible.
Mhm.
It doesn't need to be $100 cold plunges and saunas. It can literally be a walk in nature.
Yeah.
And so, how do we bridge that side of our brand with our products? And we believed in connecting people to back to their own nature, and that nature can be truly healing and doesn't need to cost thousands of dollars. And
Yeah.
so that's the retreats coupled with our authenticity and then coupled with our product as like a cohesive, I think, brand storytelling.
Yeah. From that brand storytelling, I think from a website perspective, social media, of course, you can tell that story. When you got on shelf at Sprouts, how did you ensure that you were communicating that story and getting people to even trial the brand? Because, you don't have that one on one connection or opportunity to do long form on your website to support awareness.
Yeah, it's another really good question. I mean, we started doing more demos and education actually just in starting like the last 2-3 months. We finally just closed a little bit more funding to be able to do some more on the ground education and hire a sales team because we never had that either. It was like myself and our head of operations, Charlene, and our SVP, Tina, and us three basically splitting our heads between Ulta and Sprouts and like new accounts And finally, we just hired 2 additional salespeople. So we have a director of sales for the natural grocery side, which I consider Sprouts and Whole Foods, and then a director of sales for the Ulta Beauty side. And so now that we have our sales team, we're actually starting to do a lot more merchandising, end caps, and demos. And within those demos, we're sending a lot of educational materials. We have a lot of one pagers
Mm.
that talk about the Japanese traditions, like how to talk about the form factor and the drops themselves and how they're much more potent than, say, pills and powders, and that the bioavailability of the herbs themselves. So it's been a lot of like on the ground education, frankly. And again, we believe in wanting to start small rather than just like wide. So even with Whole Foods, we're only launching 3 SKUs across nationwide stores, and then we'll go deeper and wider from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's smart, definitely, and just aligning what are the top items that we know we can drive and get the customer
Yeah.
attracted and loyal, and then building out based on those additional needs. Completely
Yeah. I
makes
mean, what do
sense.
you think are some of the biggest failures that entrepreneurs make in their first entry into retail?
You're putting the question back on me. Um,
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would probably say one, not really understanding the retailers that make sense for their brand. Some people just want to
Yeah.
be in Target, be in Walmart, but you really need to sit back and understand, does this align with my brand from a price point
Yeah.
perspective, a consumer demographic perspective? Does that fit, right? Because you can have the best product, but if you're putting it in front of consumers that really aren't either driven to your price point, maybe you have high end premium pricing, but you are in a Walmart, right? Where everything else on the shelf is a certain price point and you're outpriced. It's going to be very hard for you to turn that consumer to the higher and vice versa, right? So I think that is one. I think not being strategic in the assortment choices, like you're kind of leaning into the top ones. A lot of brands will show their full portfolio and not really have
Mm,
direction, right? And then that makes the buyer not trust. Like you haven't done the work
mm,
to identify what are the real product assortments that make sense. And then lastly, I would just say that a lot of brands believe that once they're on shelf, like all the traffic is going to come to them and they don't have to do the work. So you have to have a strong marketing plan that really not only builds brand awareness, but also drives traffic into stores. Yeah.
yep. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have absolutely learned and had our own humble pie for a long time too, just like learning retail
Yeah.
because it's so different to D2C and it's not trackable. So sometimes you just feel like you're just torching cash, frankly. But it's just different and the ramp up period is also different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think too, asking buyers, what's success look like? What are some brands that have done it really well and what do they do? I mean, not all the time will it directly align, but it's a great, guide to help understand, like, to your point, even comparing Ulta to Sprouts. Is it sampling? Is it education? Is it getting out to stores and, having one-on-ones with the field team? Like, what is the mode?
Yeah. Absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what have been the most successful ways that you've been driving awareness and gaining those sales in retail?
Yeah, so we've been looking at our marketing funnel. I would say like every month we kind of change based on season and also just because herbs are so seasonal. What we focus on in the winter time is also really different to what we focus in the summertime. So, for example, Blueburn is a product that, we just finished our clinical study on. It's a lot to do with
Mm.
fitness. And so, summertime is like the place and time that we do a ton more focus on influencer and education around Blueburn. But wind down as we go into more of the winter months and it gets darker earlier and people are having trouble sleeping and like they're feeling more stressed because of the holidays and Black Friday and the new year. We focus then on like wind down. So our marketing funnels shift and our go to market and how we reach new customers and audiences also shift by season. And so I like to talk about that because it kind of states it puts in um the emphasis, I think, on us in terms of like how do we change our brand storytelling by season. And so, for example, now that we're entering winter in Japan, we're talking a lot more about sleep and restoration and groundedness and how that ties into like the fall foliage. So we do a lot more education around like winter grounding herbs and education around like how to combat like seasonal affective disorder and living with like darkness. And so that allows us to hit customers in a different way
Yeah.
that then we hit new customers that then may go to Sprouts or Whole Foods. So our call to action is changing based on channel. So what we learned on Instagram and social is like Instagram and social is great for all education and like growing just like our social media presence. And then what we find is like our actual posts on Reels, as well as our drop. We have this group called The Drop. That's basically like the broadcast group that you can create on Instagram where you have like your own specific niche group.
Hmm.
We focused a lot more on like call to action links and education there, signing up for classes and different events. So that's more bottom of funnel, at least on Instagram. On TikTok, we actually think TikTok is the thing that's most highly correlated with retail and Amazon. TikTok customers don't convert on D2C for us. TikTok customers go to Amazon, they go to retailers to buy on Instacart, or they're just much more faster with their thumbs. And I think it's the younger Gen Z in them, they want to shop around. So we do a ton of short form content, a ton on TikTok. So you'll see a lot more of our retailer content on TikTok because people there are more likely to convert in retail
Okay,
there as
makes
well.
sense.
And then we do a lot more top of funnel brand education from an offline perspective, whether it's like through we did a cafe for Ulta, for example. We opened a cafe in Soho where we did like a Ulta by Apothekary, Earth Meets the Aisle a cafe offering matcha lattes in various forms using our different drops. So that drove about 2,000, customers coming through the door. And then on top of that, about 1 billion views across all the social media to know that people can now find us at Ulta. So those are the kinds of activations we will do for our retailers. We have a big Whole Foods campaign coming out with like a pop-up again. So we'd like to combine experiential and in-person combined with paid acquisition, top of funnel ads, email marketing. We have about 1 million subscribers on our email list. And so we will send all comms out, usually through a plain text email from Shizu. Those tend to have the highest open rates because when you just put a lot of images and text in it, people just don't want to read it. Plain text, get the point out there, go visit us in store. That usually does a great job. And then we also do a ton of gift card marketing. We do a lot of like buying gift cards from, say, Whole Foods or Sprouts, and we'll give them to influencers to go shopping and spread awareness to drive traffic in those stores as well. We would spend probably up to $10,000 on gift cards alone. And that's really to drive awareness, velocity, and foot traffic into the stores. And so we do a lot. We really,
Yeah.
our team is incredibly impressive. I am learning so much from like Tina and our new directors of retail that are joining. It's all things I've never learned and done ever.
Yeah. That's why you have a solid team. How many people are on your team?
So we have about 50 people now. And then we do our own fulfillment as well. So we have self-distribution opportunities for like Ulta and Sprouts. We actually self-distribute to all 500 Alt stores and for Sprouts. And then we're now going on to UNFI for Whole Foods because we had to for centralizing. We can do both because of D2C. We do all our fulfillment in-house.
Wow, that's impressive. So one, definitely kudos for just being diverse in regards to how you target consumers. And it sounds very much like understanding too what the right mode is in order to connect with those consumers. And it seems like it
Yeah.
varies by channel. And then just, I think it's definitely great to hear how there's opportunity to get outside of the four walls, but still drive traffic through in real life experiences and experiential places that you can educate a bit more, get more connected to consumers and get them loyal to then go to the store and buy.
Yeah. I mean, people want to get out. They want to
Yeah.
meet you in person. They want to see. So we're doing another pop-up in the winter time. We're doing our first holiday pop-up with like, my mom makes pottery. So she does like have you heard of the term kintsugi in Japanese by
No,
chance?
no.
So kintsugi is this art of like imperfection is beauty, and this idea that broken pottery can be pieced together through gold glue. And it's 24 karat gold mixed with cedar sap. So it comes across as like glue basically. But because ceramics are also made of clay and from the ground, and cedar sap is also nature, you put in the gold, which is also nature. And you see etches of gold around the ceramics. And so that's what they call kintsugi. Kin means gold and sugi means cedar. And we're doing a pop-up around ceramics and how this idea of healing and imperfection is we're all on like a healing journey. We will never be perfect, frankly. But again, like this whole brand storytelling, it has almost nothing to do with product. But we will obviously have product there for people to buy if they would
Right.
like to,
Yeah.
but kind of just like a larger storytelling.
Yeah. I think that's also a cool way to get consumers connected to the brand. It's like, to your point, you're not just selling and you're bringing total wellness into,
Yeah.
into view, not just a specific product, which I think just
Yeah.
gains more and more loyalty. So you talked a little bit about funding. Can you
Love money talk.
So what made you even, decide that that's something, an avenue that you needed to go down in order to build a business?
Yeah, I think so the first company that I started with drink, we were just so poor all the time. Like we had to open the first store or the second store through the first store, the third store through the first and the second store. We got a 50K line of credit. And that was like the only funding that we got in our first 4 years of that company. And I did it for 8 years. And so I knew that in my second time around that I wanted to have more scalability and that the impact would be larger. And so I reverse engineered the economics of Apothekary, meaning we had very high margins from the get-go so that we could scale it wider and pay for the marketing costs that you need to fund through gross margin. Everything is gross margin comes down to. And shelf stability, because we had 3 days shelf life for a
Mhm.
drink. And now we have 3 years from opening, which is like game changing. And so like the bankability of this business was so much higher that we realized like if we're going to do it, I'd rather go fast and do it properly. But in order to go fast and properly, we had to raise capital. And once you raise capital, you have to either keep growing to return that capital or you're going to continue to raise money. And so we've raised about 20 million over the last 6 years. And so we just closed another 5 within that 20. And then we're also now able to rely on some debt capital. We were able to get an impact loan because we are a minority owned business that also is 99% women, also minority, mostly women. And we're proud of it. And we want to like, as much as that gets dinged in the world of like equity investors, we were able to like really be able to get a well-priced loan from a social impact perspective. So, I think we're focused on growing profitably, growing thoughtfully, and not growing too fast beyond our customers and what they can quote unquote handle, because sometimes the market is not ready for the brand to be telling them about XYZ ingredients when they're still trying to understand ashwagandha. So we're always really thoughtful, I think, about like product market timing and product market readiness as well.
Yeah, there's like two questions that I have in my mind here. So one is, with that, because there are so many trends, especially now that TikTok is play, right? There's so many trends that are
Yeah.
happening. How do you ensure that you're keeping in regards to building the brand and the products that you feel are most relevant to your consumers, balancing that with these pop-up trends that happen that, not knowing whether they're going to come or go, and how real they are?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, I think a little bit about signal versus noise. That has always existed in the world of finance, at least, is like signals are things that, are constantly happening that are signs of like signals to you that something is a real trend, something that like, you need to underwrite for like the next 5 years. And most times customers don't really see, obviously, the data that the business has as an aggregate. So I always like to think about creating products that customers don't know they need in 5 years from now. Like
Hmm.
that's how far we're thinking about it. And so we have our product roadmap at least for the next 2-3 years. Like the dates can change, but like we know we're going to launch all of this stuff. It's very big. um, and but that said, I think about signal versus noise in that a lot of things are noise. A lot of things in supplements in particular, I feel like every year there's been a new trend or fad. And I'm sure you probably see it even more closely.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think that's the wisdom of 5,000 years of science and tradition of herbs is like we get the benefit of think of remedies and things that have existed for a very long time that we can underwrite and also just kind of bring it a little bit more modern to the market. And we have the benefit of also again leaning into like our Japanese ethos and Japanese ingredients. And how do people in Japan live to like 100 years old? And why is it that this little country has the highest population of people that live over 100 years old? And we go back to, again, like some of the ingredients and foods that they eat, the lifestyle that they live, the communities that they hold. And we try to bring that to life from like a product fit perspective. But yeah, there's a lot of fads out there.
Yeah.
Try
So
not
just
to like
basically
listen
keep
to
your
all of them.
blinders on, have a plan and a strategy, and just
Yeah.
kind of stick with that, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot about authority. Like, where does a brand have an authority to enter the space? Like, I, as much as would love to be in protein and liquid creatine and all of that, I don't necessarily see us having an authority in that space for an herbal medicine company.
Yeah.
as much as I would love to.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's strong because a lot of people do kind of tinker into these fads. It's like, oh, I need to have a part of that. Oh, I need to be a part of that. But really, you just need to hold true to the mission of your brand.
Yeah. I mean, look at all the matcha companies now that are probably just raking it in that never thought they would. It's
So,
crazy.
what has been the most challenging part for you in being in retail stores?
Challenging is probably just the nature of offline, like we just don't get that instant feedback that you would get in digital, whether it's seeing comments on your ads or seeing real-time, conversion metrics on your dashboards and your analytics. That's absolutely probably the first thing. And then some of the most frustrating is like knowing when you walk into a store and you don't see your product on shelf when it's supposed to be there. And so it's stuff like that where I then like pull things out of my pocket. I'm like, put it on there. Or like, and then the most gratifying piece also is being in store and educating the staff and the people there. And especially, I've learned like at least like Sprouts people, like the staff, very well educated on herbs. Like they're pros. Ulta, like people, the beauty advisors are still like learning about wellness. They may not have ever taken a supplement because
Yeah.
all they know is skincare and makeup. And so we're actually doing a lot of education there with the Ulta team as well. And so everything is now just about education.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's been the challenging.
Do you find you have to tailor how you educate in Ulta versus Sprouts just based on what you're saying in regards to,
Oh, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. At least in particular form factor, like why drops and these like tincture formats versus pills and powders, which is sort of like the default supplement is like a pill or a gummy
yes,
or a
yeah,
powder.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the good thing is we're in a space where people are tired of pills and they're looking for alternative deliveries. And to your point, I mean, liquids are higher absorption than gummies, which we know are kind of like
Yep.
entry price point and don't get all of that.
Yeah. And we don't want all the sugar and I
And
don't
we
want it
don't
stuck
want
on
all
my
the
teeth
sugar,
and all
right?
of that. Yeah. Yeah.
And we want it to be quick. I was just talking about how your sleep is love it because just the drops versus a lot of products you have to take water with at night and people
Yeah.
get concerned that they're going to have to get up in the middle of the night and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love our wine down. I take it right before bed.
Yeah.
So good. So good.
So what has been like the best customer feedback that you've received?
Oh, I mean, kind of depends on the product, I would say. But like most recently, we launched a product called Every Phase, which is a it's literally for every phase. So, like through cycle balancing, through perimenopause to menopause. And it feature a branded ingredient called pycnogenol, which is Mediterranean pine bark. So, we're the first company to offer this branded ingredient in our formula. And there's actually over 140 clinical studies on this one ingredient to help with hot flashes, energy balancing and hormone balancing. And we just have seen women that have responded to this product and have said, like, my menopause and hot flashes are no longer a concern, or they don't feel the same symptoms that they were feeling with their mood in particular because of their menopause symptoms. And so it's feedback like that I think has been very life changing and from like a product perspective. The second I think about is really our journey east trips to Japan. Like I'm leaving in a week and we have 15 customers that are joining us for the second sold out trip. And it'll be our first time with our community ever. And just to hold space for people going through an immense amount of life change. So we have people going through 2 years of, like 2 divorces, people that have gone through death in their families and they need a reset. And they're coming to Japan with me and two of our team members to literally learn how people do it and what they do in Japan. So we're doing a day of forest bathing, a day of zazen, vipassana, and meditation, a day of chado, which is the tea ceremony, and ikebana, the day of kintsugi and art and ceramics and imperfection is beautiful. And just like that feedback in real time is truly like what lights me up. And as a non-married, no child person, I just have so much joy that I get out of doing things like this, where I feel like this is where my life purpose is.
Yeah. I was going to say, is this where you felt what was missing when you were in Wall Street?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I never ever thought 15 years later I would be doing this with you or doing this in like the world that I'm in ever. Just like the scale of it and the opportunity of it and candidly, like, well, you never know, and it might not ever happen to whatever we're supposed to be doing, but let's not live in tomorrow. And my mentor always has the best advice. Don't borrow trouble from tomorrow. It's the biggest debt that you could ever put on yourself
I love
today.
that.
Don't borrow it.
Yeah.
Don't take it.
I love that. I love that. So, what is next for Apothecary? You said you've planned out 5 years from your assortment, but for the goals
Yeah,
of
yeah.
yourself and the brand, where do you see it going?
Yeah, I think hiring better people, still continuing to be around better people or smart people around me. And so just right before this, I had a great performance interview or performance feedback with our new SVP that joined, and bringing her to like her next stage of her career to help with the day-to-day of the business while I kind of continue to focus on more high level brand and vision and strategic. So it's I would say people, number one. Number two, continuing to double down on like our experiential and like Journey East and bringing that to Journey West. So we'll be doing our first Journey West retreat in the West Coast of this year. We'll bring Japan, like the different modalities of what we're talking about, to stateside. And then I think about opening our own pop-up in late 2027, and continuing to grow our retail accounts and making sure our staff is educating more staff on the ground, and continuing to grow thought and delivering incredible product to every as many hands as possible.
Love it. Love it. And where can our listeners follow the journey as well as, of course, purchase Apothecary?
Yeah, yeah. And thank you. Apothecary.com, apothecary with a K. You can also follow along on like LinkedIn. My Instagram is Shizu Okusa. Or you can follow obviously Apothecary. We just launched a Substack called The Wealth Report, WELLTH.
Okay.
Basically a market update for your mind, body, and soul. So we kind of merge the world of finance with the world of wellness together, because your money is not the only asset you should be managing.
I love that. And I'll put that all in the show notes. Just curious, was wellness always kind of top of mind for you before starting Apothecary?
Yes, because I think of my juice company was always, in wellness.
Yeah.
I have had my own personal journey of healing, both physically, mental, kind of like I've never always had like a perfect mental health, like I always felt like I was a little bit like different from people. I never quite like fit in. And I was always like, I just want to create something of my own kind of like solution, or something that like met both like the objective side of my brain, but also this like woo woo creative side. And how do I like merge the two? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, this has always been, I think, a journey. That's why we actually call our trips journeys, and we don't call them retreats. We call them journeys because it's just the start of something.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much, Shizu. This is a great conversation. I loved every minute of it. I appreciate you coming on.
Likewise.
I appreciate it.
Likewise, and thank you for having me. It's such an
Yeah.
honor, and like just meeting you and your team even
I
recently,
know,
and
right?
it's just been so much fun. So thank you for having me. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good. Thank you.